Have you ever thought that one morning you might see a dead body floating on a lake? That man never did, until he pulled over by Lakewood Bay on the morning of October 13th, 2014. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on October 13th, 2014, I, Lieutenant Mark Turner, received a call from a citizen in a state of panic.
At the edge of Lakewood Bay, I saw a body floating.
I hurried out of the Ashford County Sheriff's Office headquarters, walking step by step on the gravel road filled with fog, my heart pounding. When arriving at the scene, the car's headlights and the police's temporary lighting system focused a dim light on the lake surface opposite the protruding cliff, about 10 meters above the road, where the victim's body was floating. I crouched down on the edge of the cliff, trying to observe under the yellow light, seeing a naked female body, tightly wrapped in a thin steel mesh, her hands tied behind her with a red nylon rope, 3 cement blocks placed on the mesh with the purpose of destroying the body, and 8 stab wounds on the abdomen, clear traces of brutal acts. I ordered everyone to keep the scene intact, record an overview, and at the same time, start the chain of custody process, chain of custody of evidence, recording, sealing, marking, transferring physical evidence in order to ensure legality, right on the spot. Next, the mobile forensic team arrived, under my direction, to perform an on-site autopsy, determine the cause of death due to mechanical asphyxiation, ligature asphyxia, strangulation until unable to breathe, determined by signs of hyoid bone fracture. At the same time, take tissue samples for DNA testing, collect biological fluids, and examine post-mortem stab wounds, post-mortem wounds, wounds caused after the victim has died, proving the intention to destroy the body and take revenge. Behind the light bulb, people flocked to observe secretly, their eyes vacillating between horror and curiosity. I felt every cold breath of night, every shake of the camera, every drop of dew on the top of my helmet. After determining the condition of the body, I let the boat approach, picked it up ashore, and immediately transferred it to the preliminary examination area, a place full of harsh halogen lights, antibacterial smell, and the strong smell of dried blood. The victim's body was about 25 to 30 years old, with long, brightly dyed hair, well-groomed fingernails and toenails, no jewelry, no personal items. I observed 2 tattoos on my body, a rose branch on my left chest, and a floral pattern on my calf. Rose tattoos with thorns often symbolize love associated with suffering, suggesting that the victim has experienced emotional trauma or chosen a career in entertainment services. A karaoke hugging employee, KTV, a karaoke bar that serves additional table service, a position to hug customers, rather than a normal rural person. I ordered that detail to be meticulously recorded, then directed the forensic expert to take samples of mesh fabric and cotton fibers stuck to the fabric, consistent with the local cotton harvest season, to analyze the origin of the fabric fibers, helping to localize the location of the initial detention. In my head, I began to draw a diagram of the modus operandi, MO, the criminal's method of action, realizing that the trick was very methodical, strangling first, then stabbing later to remove the gas in the body, prevent post-mortem bloating, preventing the body from inflating due to the gas that causes buoyancy, then wrapping it with a net, tying it with cement, and throwing it from a high position without cameras to cover up the traces. When the criminal team searched around the cliff, we discovered footprints printed on wet mud, a thin nylon bag, and a small piece of string still covered in mud, all of which were packed into the evidence bag. I stood next to the handheld camera, panning from the footprints to the ledge behind, where there were no surveillance cameras, only the thin light of a flashlight filtering through the foliage. I imagined the perpetrator had surveyed the area in advance, careful enough not to be caught on camera. I quietly asked Officer Jason Brooks,
"Does this place have a backup camera?"
Jason Brooks shook his head.
No, this corner directly obscures it. Only the traffic control station on the other side of the highway.
I gritted my teeth.
So we had to rely on physical traces.
The night was dark. Only the sound of the wind rustling and the footsteps of teammates could be heard. The next day, I assigned the information technology team to collect all CCTV in the area of Ruby Lounge Karaoke Bar, Blue Orchid Nightclub, and nightclubs within a 5 kilometers radius. At a KTV shop, the staff identified the tattoo as described. The working name was Rose, quit on October 8th. The temporary phone number she provided, prepaid number, garbage number with no owner, caused a deadlock for us. But a regular customer named Ray Dawson said that Rose had a second number reserved for regular customers. That number happened to be registered to the owner. I used a court order to request the switchboard to provide subscriber information a second time, and the results returned that her real name was Naomi Walker. Address Charleston, South Carolina. Immediately, I directed Team 5 officers to come up. On the way back to her hometown, I asked for her parents' DNA sample to compare with the sample at the laboratory. The clock showed 2 p.m., the weather was dry, and as soon as we arrived at her parents' house, I received a phone call telling me that the match was 100%. Returning to the district capital, I convened a meeting of the project committee. The large map is filled with camera images, a cell site location diagram, coordinates of a phone signal reception station, DNA evidence printouts, and Ray Dawson's testimony. I underlined each line 3 lines 4 times, clearly stating the route of travel. From October 5th to October 9th, Marcus Doyle, Leonard Briggs, Travis Milton, the 3 main suspects, rented a house along the highway, closely contacted Naomi Walker through a secondary number, then drove the victim to Leonard Briggs' cotton warehouse, forced him to confess, took the bank password. Then Marcus Doyle pretended to be a woman to withdraw money, a disguised phishing procedure via ATM at 2019 on October 9th, the exact hour of the victim's death. Accumulation. I emphasize
Everything from the cement fingerprints, cotton hair fibers, iron hook DNA, dried blood samples on the knife, dirt samples on the cement blocks all match Marcus Doyle, Leonard Briggs, Travis Milton.
I looked straight into the director's eyes.
We have enough grounds to prosecute the crime of murder, robbery, and body disposal with barbaric, intentionally subjective, and cruel tricks.
On the screen, each line of text appeared clearly. Each number, each name appeared coldly, like an unfinished sentence. On October 12th, I directly dialed Marcus Doyle, Leonard Briggs, and Travis Milton to come to headquarters to take statements. Marcus Doyle trembled, his voice choked.
I'm just drunk.
Leonard Briggs tried to act tough but kept rubbing his fingers with dry blood. Travis Milton's eyes avoided, sweat pouring down his forehead. I asked questions about the 8 knife wounds.
Why did you stab her again after you knew she was dead?
Marcus Doyle bowed his head.
To create holes for air to escape so it doesn't float up.
Testimony revealed confusion about the process of decomposition in an anaerobic environment. Anaerobic decomposition. Bacteria decomposing tissue in the absence of oxygen to create gases. I took in every detail and then remained silent, letting the air tense like a rope. Outside, the news has not yet been revealed to the press. All developments are kept absolutely secret to avoid escapees. That night, I couldn't sleep, lying awake with the image of the body floating, sinking, floating on the surface of the lake. The feeling of helplessness flickered in my head. Why did 3 people who knew the crime and were alert still committed such barbaric acts? The next morning, when the sun was shining, my technical team and I conducted blood spatter analysis in the lab, modeling the shot angle, calculating the velocity, determining the location of the victim in the cotton bullet depot, simulating the torture scene. The results showed that the victim was first strangled, then laid on his back, then suffered 8 knife blows until his unconscious body language completely relaxed, post-mortem stabbing after death, as a prolonged act of revenge, making me shudder. When the final report was completed, I reread every line, from receiving information, protecting the scene, forensic examination, collecting DNA evidence, fingerprints, hair, fabric, traces on the net, footprints on the cliff, to matching the travel itinerary through cameras, phones, and triangular testimony. A belief arose in me. Justice, even if late, must still come. I signed the minutes, handed the file to the procuracy, then turned to look at Lakewood Bay, now peaceful, the light flashing near the guard post. I whispered,
The lake will no longer be a place to hide secrets. They will suffer the consequences.
and in my heart, I know this journey is just the beginning of the trial, where 3 barbaric criminals will face the maximum sentence. When the testing agency confirmed that the DNA and fingerprints of Marcus Doyle, Leonard Briggs, and Travis Milton completely matched the evidence collected, I immediately requested to prosecute the defendants, serve arrest warrants, and search the residences of all 3. During the following days of searching, I spent most of my time comparing the call history with the location of the transceiver station, reconstructing every move of the group of suspects from the time they bought steel mesh and cement at the roadside construction site until they returned to the scene a second time to dispose of the body. The constant stress caused me to lose sleep. The image of the rake hook sticking out of the net and the dried bloodstains on the net haunted me every time I closed my eyes. Before reporting the file to the prosecutor's office, I gathered all the exhibits of evidence. A map of the scene marking the 2 locations where the body was thrown, a photo printed from a security camera that jerked every second of the image of Leonard Briggs's Honda Civic, an ATM photo showing Marcus Doyle's feminine appearance, a photo of Leonard Briggs's cement fingerprint, DNA analysis results from the wire mesh, knife, cotton cloth, dried blood samples, and forensic conclusions about 8 post-mortem knife wounds, all of which were recorded, numbered, sealed, arranged in a solid logical sequence. I whispered to myself,
If at any moment those 3 guys had hesitated, had the thought of stopping, they wouldn't be standing here confessing their crimes now.
it is the belief in justice, that even if it is late, the truth must still be revealed. Before bringing the defendants to trial, I spent a long time listening to criminal psychology experts analyze their records. Marcus Doyle, Leonard Briggs, Travis Milton. They point out signs of antisocial personality disorder, shown through the act of taking the lives of others without hesitation, and signs of impulse control disorder, difficulty controlling impulses, shown in adding knife wounds to ensure the body sinks, and at the same time suffering a brutal sense of power. I smack my lips.
They don't feel guilty at all. They just tremble when they're afraid of being discovered.
During my sessions with experts, I learn more about criminals' cognitive distortions, how they justify that it's just an animal or it's dead. The day the case was brought to trial, I dressed in a neat military uniform, my arms full of documents, and walked into a courtroom filled with press and guests. The judge opened the trial by showing off the evidence: wire mesh, rake hook, 3 cement blocks, knife, nylon rope, DNA profile set, and black painted fingerprints. I presented in a calm but convincing voice every detail of the chain of custody, from collection, sealing to analysis in the lab. The defense attorney tried to evoke the circumstances of Marcus Doyle's time because of family burdens, but I skillfully countered with the call line and camera, showing that Marcus Doyle had planned it in advance, not a spontaneous action. I conclude,
The case shows organized brutality, aimed at robbing money, using torture, killing people, abusing bodies. All the signs that constitute the crimes of attempted murder, with aggravating circumstances, robbery, and illegal disposal of corpses.
The trial lasted for 3 days. I was constantly present, recording the emotions of all 3 defendants. Marcus Doyle burst into tears a few times, shedding tears of remorse. Leonard Briggs was startled and trembled when he heard the camera image assessment, and Travis Milton just kept his head down the whole time. Contradictory testimonies, denials, and confessions. I analyzed every millimeter of change on their faces, linking them with irrefutable physical evidence. In the closing moments, the judge sentenced all 3 to death, along with compensation to the victims' families. As I wrote down the book, my eyes suddenly felt stinging, not because of pity, but because I saw the double pain of the victim and of the investigation officers who spent all their time seeking justice. Leaving the courtroom, I looked up at the early winter sky of Ashford County, the cold wind of the first season whistling through the leaves. The other side of Lakewood Point is now quiet, but I know the memory of the floating body, the net, the cold cement, the 8 knife wounds will always follow me in every sleep, reminding me of the cruel shadows of humans.
The lake will no longer be a secret prison for criminals.
I whispered.
Justice has named the 3 perpetrators.
And in that moment, I believed that victim Naomi Walker was finally given peace. After the trial ended, Dragging through the days of assessment, impeachment, and sentencing, I realized I was not completely satisfied. Now, between live nights, I still have to face the suspect's blank eyes, hundreds of pages of transcripts, and camera tapes of Marcus Doyle holding a knife with Leonard Briggs and Travis Milton. I received orders to continue consolidating the files and completing procedures to send those 3 men to an isolated prison cell, awaiting execution. But at the same time, the investigation team and I still have one thing to do: review the entire chain of events from October 5th to October 13th, collect additional testimony from Ray Dawson, from the KTV staff, from the hotel manager, to further consolidate the details. Every single testimony, no matter how small, like Ray Dawson seeing Marcus Doyle wearing a makeup mask, Leonard Briggs holding 3 blocks of cement in the car, Travis Milton buying a net at the farmer's market, were all carefully crafted by me like the final pieces of the crime picture. Every time I discovered a new clue, for example, through the evidence of Marcus Doyle's shoes leaving mud streaks on the cotton warehouse floor, I had to zoom out to the crime scene map, retrace my route, print my fingerprints, and compare it with the sample. Not only stopping at legal matters, I also directly coordinated with the psychology department to collect analysis of their motives. Experts pointed out that all 3 showed signs of groupthinking, because of the burden of debt, because of playing big in the hope of getting out of trouble. Each person was caught up in the common brutal action. No one dared to stop. They have lost their ability to judge individually and follow each other's deceitful intentions. That's a warning. In investigative work, we not only collect physical evidence, but also have to see through the psychological mechanisms of crime. Then, because of the complexity of issuing a death certificate and accurately identifying the victim, I spent a few more weeks transferring documents to the provincial notary office to complete the procedures for issuing a death certificate and related documents to Ms. Naomi Walker's family. Her parents in the countryside did not know that their daughter had. I directly announced the DNA results, gathered documents to confirm identity, and assisted the family in completing procedures to receive the body. The moment her parents stood in front of the coffin, I had to cover my eyes to hide my emotions. They hugged the coffin and cried. Finally, when all procedures were completed, it was time for the 3 criminals to be escorted to the mobile courtroom to carry out the death sentence. I stood silently in front of the prison's small yard, watching them trudge up the cement steps. In the pale morning sunlight, the image of 3 people who took the life and abused a human being, now officially subject to the highest punishment of the law, made me shiver. A long whistle signaled the start of the execution session. I turned away, my hands still shaking, telling myself I would never forget what I had witnessed and always be wary of the cruel shadows lurking in society. So, the tragic story in Lakewood Bay, from the panic call of the man on the street, from the floating corpse, to the arduous investigation journey, to the trial, and finally the death sentence, has come to an end. But its echoes still haunt, as a warning about the fragility of the boundaries between people, and that justice, even if delayed, must still come, so that the innocent can rest assured and the victims can be restored to their final dignity.